Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Junia Doan. Welcome to Uncommon Sense. Thank you for joining us. My guest today is multi-talented Joseph Caldwell. Joseph is the musician, artist, stonemason, and tree specialist. Welcome, Joseph. You've done so many things, but tell me about the music aspect.
Well, you know, my father, he bought us a guitar, my brothers and I, one year, and we just started picking it up and started messing around with it, and then sought out some others that were playing, and learned from a neighborhood guy who taught at the local music store. And yeah.
Do you have a really good ear? How did you just pick it up or start messing around?
Well, I don't think I have that good of an ear as far as I'm always struggling keeping it in tune and things like that. But what I do have is just you know, a passion and very I like to explore things and a sense of wonder and things like that. So that propelled me to just to play and see what happens. Yeah.
So to explore and to play, so you took that to a lot of areas of your life.
Yeah, I did. You know, I think for music is just one of those things that you have that you can do that just helps you kind of relax and kind of copes with your day, and a place to just to put your emotions and things that might be bothering you or exciting you. And it just kind of centers you in a way. You know, certain things that we like to do, some people maybe collect stamps or things like that, and it just kind of
harmonizes
you.
Yeah,
Yeah, it kind of does. Yeah.
Do you think it's a chance to be more internal?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's very internal. You know, especially when you come to writing songs, there's, you know, you could learn what other songs that people write, and then as you keep playing and keep playing, you kind of discover things about yourself, you know, that you didn't know. So it's kind of a discovery, songwriting. My older brother, he played as well, but he's real rocker and electric guitar, and I'm more of the songwriter and the folky and Americana type things.
Do you hear the music, or can you turn it on like a light when you want to pay attention to it?
Yeah, I do hear the music. The music is kind of the easier part, I think, for me. Certain melodies and rhythms come to you, and you're able to put those down. And then when it comes to the lyrics, you know, and how you feel about something, that can be a struggle. But in my experience is they kind of just come out of nowhere. You know, the more I try to force a song, the harder it is, and sometimes they just kind of come out of nowhere. Sometimes they're like that.
Some people talk that it comes from deep out, and some people I've heard say that they are just the vessel. It comes through them.
Yeah, I've heard that.
What is your thought on that?
I would lean more to the that I'm more of the vessel, because the meaning is outside in my worldview, and it's for me to discover and not to create from my own individuality. And I think the more you work with a guitar or even stone or wood, the more things you discover about it Um, um, so you're kind of getting the I'm not really saying of the it's kind of embodied in the craft, and so some things you just can't just show someone. They actually have to have their hands in it for months, years, in order for them to understand what you're talking about or to learn a craft. It's because I was apprenticed by masters of craft in the stone and in the tree work, so there's something that you just can't be taught. You have to actually go through the exercises and the drudgery and
Glad you mentioned the drudgery.
well, it appears to be drudgery at first, but then after a while you see things in the world that the average person that hasn't been initiated or apprenticed wouldn't see. So I had a friend that used to always say that after doing a performance and the applause, and he'd say, "Oh, it's not me, it's the universe coming through me," and things like that, which is interesting. And also I heard a TED talk from Elizabeth Gilbert once, and she talked about how that your creativity, that she's not the sole source of the creativity. You know,
She's what?
She's not the sole source of her own creativity. It can kind of come through you, or when the, as she would say, that when the god of writing is present, then maybe she's really writing good. Where some other schools of thought think that, you know, it's all through their own efforts, their creativity. So I can see both sides, but I tend to lean towards the a combination of discovery more than inventing meaning.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you say is you need a certain amount of training, which comes through drudgery and discipline and and the direction of good teachers,
Yes.
in order to be the vessel or to be the space to recognize what is coming through you or from you.
Yeah. I'm
Interesting.
Yeah, it's there's different ways to. Well, another one would be maybe Martin Luther, who was always trying to work out his faith and do good works, and to the point where he finally realized, well, through the grace of God, is he's saved. So it's the same thing in that sense too, where it's not so much how much hard work or how much I try to do. It's sometimes it's just coming through to you. I had a poet friend that said that a poem would come on the wind, and they'd rushed and had to go and write it down before it went off away from them. So there's a lot of interesting things that artists talk about, and then there are others, you know, that are very scientific about it and wouldn't know what I'm talking about compared to the muse or the god of creativity or the mysteries of how we are so creative.
Well, I was in New York just now. I went to see Maestro, which is a one-person show in the life of Leonard Bernstein, and who was drawn to both compose West Side Story and Mass and so forth, and conduct, and to popularize classical music through television. And the draw on him, and your time. Now, how do you handle your time? Because you're a tree cutter, stonemason, you carve from what you cut down, you do the music.
Well, a lot of that is, as well, it comes from the world outside. You know that wood acts differently in the winter time,
Yes.
you know, when you're cutting it and drying it than it would in the spring or summer or fall. There's stones that have been out in piles baking in the hot sun are harder to split and work than ones that are freshly pulled out of the ground. So a lot of the timing is for winter time, I do a lot of wood carving. I try to build up my inventory because I'm a little more busy doing the stone work and the masonry work and some of the tree work in the busier seasons. And
Which is spring and fall.
Yes, yes. Fall is when I try to schedule in a lot of tree care, the trimming and caring for trees, because that is the best time to do that, is in the fall months. And it's also, for various reasons, the insects are all out in the summer, so when
Yes.
you're making wounds, they're coming to drink, so it's more likely to spread diseases than when the insects aren't out. So a lot of the things, to manage your time, you just use the world.
Cycle of life.
Yeah, and things like that, and when's the best time to do things. And there's spontaneity and serendipity, definitely. Well, just running across you, and here I am one day sitting and having an interview with you. So
that was a
that's
funny
kinda,
story.
Yeah, serendipity. So yeah, well, the first rule of that is to walk out your front door and
Greet life.
yeah, and see what happens. Yeah.
When you seek out a teacher, how have you learned to analyze or decide that's a good teacher for you now?
There's really no way of knowing so much. I was just grateful that my father was master stonemason, and my mother remarried a tree specialist, an arborist, an engineer, an author. And so my other brothers, I have 3 brothers, none of them want anything to do with masonry or tree work. They worked in it as teenagers, and they went on to do other things themselves. So I was the only one that decided that I'm going to learn the skills of my father and stepfather, and they were great teachers. But you learn from all kinds of people, all
Yes.
walks of life, and you never know, who you're going to learn from and what you're going to learn,
Yeah.
or whether it's something that you wanted to learn or not. It might be a painful thing that you learned, or it might be something unexpected that you learned. So apprenticing with a craft, like I said before, I think it formed my view of the world. It kind of altered how I saw the world.
You must have a wonderful sense, not only visually, but with your hands. So when you look at a tree you've cut down, how do you see what it could be?
Well, what is already there in the wood, you can discern things, whether it's going to be a strong piece of wood, and the wood kind of can decide for you what would be good for, because there's certain knots, or if the wood is fallow, or if it's strong or not, is not easily discernible unless you've actually been cutting and chiseling over the years and planing
again, that
and working
layered
it.
experience.
And so that's what I was pointing towards, where there's seeing the world differently. You can't really just sit down and teach that to someone.
Yes.
They have to take all the years of working the wood or working with the stone. You just get serendipity, and just the grace that you come across people, and if someone's willing to teach you something, you should just sit down and listen to them, and just be open.
You played in various festivals, to switch back to music.
Yeah.
Do you do any special preparation before you get on stage?
I do. I depending on what the show is. If it's going to be a long show, I will write down maybe 50 songs that I like and know, and just have them there on the stage that I can kind of glance over and look at, because there's so much going on in a room, that if you went straight down the list, when there's a song that really fits kind of what's happening in the mood, so you kind of want to be open to what you're going to play next, and sometimes I'll just glance over the list, and one of the songs I write down will just kind of jump out at me. And oh, that's perfect for right now because, I don't know, something happened or somebody entered or whatever or something.
Yeah.
And so, same goes for, when you're at parties or picking parties or places where you're jamming, there's just certain songs are just right for the right time. So I write a list of songs, and then sometimes I will run around the block or something just to kind of get warmed up, get my muscles and body, because it takes quite a bit of energy for a solo artist to sing and stomp and strum and do all that and remember every word of the song. And so I kind of like to do a little run around the block, and I like to change up where I'm playing. And the best for me is a place I've never played. I just somehow just rise up for those occasions. And
Do you think because it was the sense of newness stimulates you or
Yeah.
awakens you?
there's a sense of newness,
Which is fun.
and the
for-
familiarity can just start to become less exciting because you're so familiar, and people can get familiar with you too. There's overexposure, that you don't want to just be, well, let's go here. We know, like if you show up,
Right.
they're like, well, he's here every week, and then you go up to a place to play and they haven't seen you in months and months, maybe a year, and there's some excitement because, they haven't seen you in a while. So
How do you keep excitement in your own life?
that's a difficult question. I don't necessarily as well feel that I don't have that much control over things like that. But I think you just kind of well, one of the sayings we say in art is we try to set ourselves up to get lucky. So if you're just out there and if you're just showing up, then some excitement could happen, if you're prepared for it or set yourself up for it. And there's just a labor of love too. You just
Artists sometimes, performing artists sometimes say they get really nervous. And sometimes without getting nervous, they're not at their best because
That's correct. Yeah.
what has your experience been like?
It's the nerves are a positive because I think they feed the energy that's required for a heartfelt performance. I think there's some nerves that feed that. There's only so much that technical abilities can take you so far in practice, but there's a freshness and an energy that I think being nervous contributes to that.
In my own life, when I get nervous about something, it's like taking off on a plane. It's that as soon as you start lifting up, you're soaring. One way or another, you're soaring,
Yeah.
and which is very fulfilling or high in your own life, but is also. I remember there was a soprano, operatic soprano I liked very much, Birgit Nielsen, and she once said that on her way to a performance, she just wished there'd be a little accident in the vehicle, not a big accident, but just a little accident, so she wouldn't have to. But and I thought, it doesn't matter where you are, you're still, human and going through the experiences of, and I do think it means you're very focused.
Yeah, I've always thought, how these big stars go from city to city to city to city,
Yes.
and show up for everyone. I mean, fully show up. I mean, they are going there, and they went the whole way, and performed. And I always thought that's amazing, 'cause sometimes you just don't feel like
Yes.
you could catch a cold for one or something, but also you're just, you have to.
How do you cope with yourself, though, at that moment when you don't really feel like it and don't seem to have that platform of generated energy?
Well, it all turns out that once you do kind of get there, I think another thing that brings me back to the question of what gets me excited for a show, I think there's a sense of celebration that's there. You know, we're here to celebrate, you know, live music, and you kind of just get caught up in the community of it. So I think the situation pulls the excitement out of you, you know, as part of being part of something that's whether it's the music scene and the audience participation. So I think we're all just there celebrating, and that's where the excitement actually comes from. Now that you think
But
about
people
it.
who go to rock shows, you know, where the amplification is really high and strong,
Yeah.
their sense of community, it looks like to me, is through oblivion. You know, they surrender themselves to something that
Yeah.
maybe you can explain.
Well, I think that I look for something meaningful and try to make a distinction between whether I'm just rising up with the mindless mob in the crowd,
Yeah.
or whether I should just get up and walk away. You know, so there's just like distinguishing between a good piece of wood and a bad piece of wood. You can
Yes.
distinguish when you should follow the crowd and when you should walk away. So my son likes the harder rock music, and so, and you know, I took him to the rock concert at the Palace. It's outside, and it's in the summer. We were boiling hot, and you know, these kids these days are dyeing their hair
Yeah.
colors and stuff like that. So I took him to the show, and I thought it was just going to be all this screaming hard rock.
Yes.
And it wasn't as bad as I thought. There was a mixture of styles. It was the Warped Tour, they call it. And so, you know, I noticed that there was a little more folky, a little more reggae, and a little more jazzy, and it wasn't all that animal primal screaming that you hear some of that hard rock. So I think there's a distinction to be made of just going along with your peers and going to the rock concert and just.
Well, just one of the questions that pops into my mind, the difference between you and your brother. He likes forceful, you like more, you know, thoughtful and perceptive, perhaps. And your son, he's maybe more out there, but is it really just what he grows up with, you know, in his own, you have to live in, I always think you have to live in your own times. You can't live in somebody else's time.
Yes. Well, you know, he's still a young man. I know I listened to the harder rock growing up too, you know, the Rolling Stones and the Led Zeppelin and stuff like that. But as I started to actually get into music myself, I think I knew my limitations, or what was really calling me was more of an articulate, more of a story, more of a folk.
Contemplative.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yes. And so
More layered.
so a lot of people, you know, I would tell that, you know, to have something that you can do, whether it's, you don't have to be good at it, just play your guitar or collect the things you like to collect, and it just calms you.
What values did you try and inculcate in your son when he was growing up?
Well, I try to instill the same values, you know, that my mentors, my father and stepfather, did for me, which, you know, is I try to get him to experience as many things, different things outside of what is normal, that he normally experiences throughout the day. So, and you know, one of the reasons that, you know, let him go to this rock concert, you know, and just see what's out there, and maybe he might frown upon it himself, you know, seeing some of whether it's debauchery or whatever. But you know, I just, you know, have a spiritual interpretation of reality. So, you know, I try to instill ideas of spirituality. Well, like I said, you know, just to try to just develop skill. Just like I said, just to be able to develop skill in something is eventually it's training you to see the world differently. So he comes to work with me, on days when he's not at school or has practice or anything like that. He's a drummer and he's learning guitar, and so just having trying to keep him busy, doing things.
I want to continue, but I have to stop. So we've learned a great deal today, and let me run through it really quickly. First of all, approach life with a sense of wonder and awe and what you can learn. And go outdoor every day expecting surprises, good things, I hope. Also be prepared. Know that when you start something, you can't know it until you actually do it and have the experience, whether it's sensate, intellectual, interpersonal, whatever. And that at some points you are then experienced enough to make better and refined decisions based on whether it's music or the wood or, as an artistic person or anything. And also be mindful that you have in your being a sense of generosity and openness, so that you can hear from other people and they become your teachers. And remember, it works two ways, so you're their teacher. So I close everything every time. Be kind to someone you know and someone you don't know, but this time be generous and respectful to someone you know and someone you don't know. I'll see you next week. Thank you.
To contact Junia, send her an email at info@juniadone.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about